Every once in a while, like, I don't know, the summer solstice or the vernal equinox, the planets and the stars align, and I get to go on the Meidas Brothers Podcast for a special crossover episode of Legal AF. It was sort of a breakout pop-up where I got to join Brett and Jordy and go over the things this week that are on your mind at the intersection of law and politics. We talked about Epstein. We talked about Martin Luther King Jr.'s files being released as a distractor, obviously. The new lawsuit that was filed by Donald Trump in Miami, why it's already started to backfire. How members of his administration, who are ambassadors for tariffs on network news, have their company or former company betting against Donald Trump and the tariffs. Oh, it was fun. And here's my appearance.
And we got a lot of legal news that is happening right now, and we got to bring in legal experts for stuff like that. So who better than Legal AF's own, MeidasTouch Legal AF's own, Michael Popok. Michael Popok, welcome to the MeidasTouch podcast.
Thanks, man. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm sorry that is sidelined, but I am thrilled by you guys taking it over and inviting me to join and play the Ben lawyer role. Which it's great. But I don't know what you guys are complaining about. There's big news before I came on the air. The files have been released, everybody. 60 years in the making. The Martin Luther King Jr. assassination files.
Yeah,
that's what Tulsi Gabbard's been working on, because they're out. That's what's been on everybody's lips.
The people were clamoring for that. MLK. Yeah. His family didn't want it, but the Trump but everyone else apparently no. I mean,
you could hear it, right? You could hear Trump release something. What's laying around? Release it.
What I was saying to Jordy is that it also exposes the hypocrisy, because you're like, oh, we would release the files, but the FBI is doing this and this is doing that. But you seem to be able to do this one pretty easy. So I think you actually just kind of exposed yourself.
Go with that. The director of national intelligence, responsible for 17 intelligence agencies, took time out of her busy day to release the MLK files. And I listened to you guys, of course, leading into my big appearance. So you're so right, Brett, about so many things. You too, Jordy.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Pope.
All right, I'm off.
We should have this guy on more often.
Yeah, Pope's going to get on more.
Good night, everybody. That's it for me. Donald Trump publicly announced that he, not the Attorney General, not Pam Bondi, was the chief law enforcement officer in his administration, responsible for setting law, enforcing law. I mean, it's a scary thought, but he said it out loud. He also said, as part of the Project 2025 Federalist Society manifesto, that Heritage Foundation manifesto, that there would be no independence of the Department of Justice and the FBI from the executive branch. That was the big mistake that the Democrats always made, having an independent attorney general, an independent FBI, which, of course, ever since J. Edgar Hoover and Watergate, we've always wanted that. So you can't have it both ways. You can't, there is no separate entity called the FBI or the Department of Justice that Karen Levette can legitimately claim is holding things up, because this is a holistic, right? There is no independence of these agencies by design. So how can you then point to their independence as holding up a process?
It's such a good point. You can't be Mr. Only I could fix it. I control everything. I am all knowing. I am all powerful. I would, but those pesky folks over at the FBI just aren't doing. It's like you can't handle those two things. Anyway, when I saw this lawsuit that Donald Trump filed against the Wall Street Journal, last week for this alleged letter that he had written to Epstein back in the day for Epstein's 50th birthday, I believe. When we were speaking, all of us were like, that was a mistake by him, because this guy's never going to let this get to discovery, because it would be absolutely devastating. And like nothing good could really come of this for Donald Trump. He's clearly just trying to threaten them. Well, flash forward just a few days, and he's already gotten some bad news in the case with the judge assignment. Popok, what's the latest here, and what can folks expect going forward?
Yeah, well, great. And it's funny, your brother and I on the Saturday Legal AF, I said, I don't understand, although I have a working theory I'll share with the Meidas audience, as to why when on the civil cover sheet, I'm going to get down to the minutia now of how you play the game, being a federal practitioner and one that practices in Florida for the last 35 years. When you file a case as the plaintiff, you have to check the box for the nearest division of that federal district that's closest to like where you live or where the injury happened or the incident happened. Donald Trump lives in Palm Beach County. He lives in Palm Beach when he's not in the White House at Mar-a-Lago. The closest division to that is just over the bridge, about 3 miles, the West Palm Beach division of the Southern District of Florida. You check that box, you have a 1 in 3 chance of getting Eileen Cannon. You do, because Middlebrooks, the other judge, is senior status. And Judge Rosenberg is that's one judge. And Cannon, who sits up in Fort Pierce, but also does some work down in West Palm, would be the other judge. But they didn't do that. They checked the box from Miami, which is 70 miles south of Mar-a-Lago, in a whole different world, one that where I live and now work. And so I understand the lawyer for Donald Trump, Alejandro Brito, who keeps filing all these defamation cases, ABC, CBS, and now Michael Cohen, and now here against Rupert Murdoch in the Wall Street Journal. I get that his office is in Miami, but that's not the reason you filed there. And I said on Saturday, they could get Darren Gales, who's the judge in the Michael Cohen case, where the Michael Cohen case for $500 million in defamation damages and breach of contract, of course, got dismissed by Donald Trump right before his deposition, after he voided his deposition 2 or 3 times. So they get Gales. This is the breaking news. And let me talk about Darren Gales, because I happen to know this judge particularly well. First of all, an amazing judge. Started on the state court. We're in federal court now, but started on the state circuit court in Miami-Dade County. It's an elected position. He gets appointed, and then he has to run for office. Full disclosure, I and my law firm at the time supported Darren Gales when he pulled an opponent. We circled the wagons around him and raised money for him. I know Darren Gales personally. He's a remarkable human being. You guys are remarkable human beings, as your appearance at MSNBC just attested to. He is a remarkable human being, good human being. He's either the first openly gay or first openly gay black judge on the Southern District of Florida, and takes pride in his diversity, if you will. He's also has a temperament very similar to Judge Merchan, the judge in New York who presided over the 34-count felony conviction of Donald Trump. Just low-key, I mean, can seethe and boil if he's crossed, but in terms of his temperament, just what you want in a judge. Of course, Donald Trump doesn't want that in a judge. And what I think what this Obama appointee learned in Judge Gales in having the Cohen case is all the tricks up Donald Trump's sleeve about trying to avoid discovery. See, here's the thing that Donald Trump always miscalculates when he files. The other side is entitled to have him sit down for a deposition under oath. And he played games with Michael Cohen several times, and then the case got ultimately dismissed. But he's going to have to sit for a deposition. Now, I will tell you.
And sorry to interrupt, but didn't he dismissed it like the day before he was
like
going to have to, hours before he was going to have to sit down. So this is the game of chicken that Donald Trump plays. He acts all tough guy, right? And then the second it's like, okay, bet, let's get in the room. It's deposition time for us to question you. He runs away scared.
Yeah. And I just said Michael Cohen on Legal AF. We'll be putting it up tomorrow. And Michael takes a different position than I do. Michael thinks that the Wall Street Journal miscalculated and they're going to fold and stroke a check. I said, I don't see that at all. There's no way that Rupert Murdoch, who is on record as saying he wants to make Donald Trump a non-person and wanted his career to end with Jan 6th and paid $787 million because of his close involvement with Donald Trump through Fox, did not think this through when they decided to run the front page 3 days ago article that said, and I don't know how they ignore this story once it was dumped in their lap, that in a scrapbook birthday album created by Jazane Maxwell, she solicited different people to contribute things to paste into this scrapbook. And one of them was I don't want to say bawdy, that sounds so, I don't know, like in vaudeville or something, some obscene pornographic sketch along with comments about Epstein being an enigma and leading a secret life, signed in pubic hair and with a Sharpie pen by somebody that it looks like it's Donald Trump. Now, others that contributed to that scrapbook, including Alan Dershowitz, have not been able to deny that they also put in comments and little things in this book. Now, Donald Trump claims this is defamatory. He didn't make the card. It's not his card. He didn't cut and paste it. Michael Cohen just told me that he's reasonably sure he knows who in the Trump organization sketched that for Donald Trump and had it submitted for the book. In other words, he knows who. Apparently, all the executive assistants around Donald Trump were tremendous artists. This is Michael Cohen. And he knows who probably drew that on behalf of Donald Trump, right? But the point is not that this is a criminal. You can't prosecute Donald Trump for this card, but it puts a lie to Donald Trump's argument that he had no knowledge that Jeffrey Epstein, his wingman, his BFF for 15 years, where they ran in Palm Beach and ran and chased women and girls in New York. It puts a lie to the story that Donald Trump had no idea what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. Then why do you call him an enigma? And why do you call his life a big secret? And that's why I think the Wall Street Journal, and that just gave license to the New York Times is now running articles every day against Donald Trump. But all they're doing is playing catch up with MeidasTouch and Ben. Ben's been running these exact same stories. There's only two people in this world that matter to me about the Epstein story. Julie K. Brown of the Miami Herald that blew this story wide open with years of dogged reporting, and Ben Iselis on the MeidasTouch Network.
Yeah, Julie K. Brown has done absolutely, fantastic work here. I also fail to see, what's defamatory about? It's obviously very damning. What's defamatory about a birthday card? Like a birthday card that someone, like, it's not, it's, to me, it's like the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. And Pope, I just feel like time and time again, over the past few months, we've seen instances where people fold to Donald Trump. They pay those big checks to the Trump Presidential Library or whatever it is. And then we see the opposite. We see kind of the law firms who stand up, the media companies, the journalists who stand up. And it looks like we're also getting more information about instances like that right now, which could also provide a bit of a blueprint for how the Wall Street Journal may handle this. I agree with you. I don't think Murdoch's the guy. I hate the guy, obviously. I think he's an evil man, and I think it's an evil empire that he runs, but I don't think he's the kind of guy who's going to back down here. But we saw legendary journalist Bob Woodward just prevail in a case where Donald Trump was trying to threaten him, and I think it ties in with all this. So, Pope, what happened in that case?
Yeah, we have a win. We have a win for journalists, for journalistic integrity. Donald Trump, not a First Amendment case, it's a money grab case. Donald Trump sued Bob Woodward after Bob Woodward wrote a book. And in making the book, he also interviewed Donald Trump 20 times in 2016 and then later in 2019 and 2020. He kept the audio recordings, of course. Donald Trump asked him at one point, according to the suit that Donald Trump brought against Woodward, he said, "You're using this for the book, right?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm using it for the book." Like I'm not writing an article about it. I'm using it for the book. Okay, great. Donald Trump then claimed after Simon & Schuster, and there's an interesting connection between Simon & Schuster and Paramount I'm going to make in a minute, because this would be a different story if Simon & Schuster was still owned by Paramount. Simon & Schuster, the publisher, then repackaged the audio tapes as the Trump tapes and made like $50 million, selling it at like $25 a pop, 2 million copies. And Donald Trump said, "Well, you my audio, I have the copyright in my own answers to my own interview." And they were like, "What?" So he sued in Pensacola, Florida, because he wanted to pull a MAGA Republican judge. The case gets transferred back to New York where it belongs. Gets assigned to Judge Gardefee. And Judge Gardefee, who's really good but really slow, takes some years to make decisions, finally made the ruling. Donald Trump argued, "I own half the copyright of my own interview." He ran to the Copyright Office and filed a notice of claim that he was the author, along with Bob Woodward, of his own interview. Now, that's not how copyright law works. Copyright, fundamentally, I could bore our audience with hours about it, but fundamentally, the first to fix in a permanent medium some creative expression, So the first to get it down on paper, to put it down on digital, to put it down on video or audio, that's who owns the copyright. And so the Simon & Schuster files the copyright, claiming authorship by Woodward. Trump comes in 5 days later and says, no, I'm the author. Copyright office says, we don't settle these things. You go to court for these things. So finally, the judge ruled, based on the complaint, that there is no ability for Donald Trump to argue that he owns part of that copyright and therefore owns some or all of the $50 million that was owed. Gardefee did give Donald Trump one more chance. This would now be his 4th attempt at a complaint. That's how his complaints have not survived three prior motions. He has one more shot. The judge said, I think it's futile, that you're never going to be able to make the allegations necessary, because the copyright law is both a shield and a sword here. What I mean by that is this. Donald Trump claims that he owns it under the Copyright Act. The Copyright Act does apply to everything that is in dispute in the case, which means all of Donald Trump's other claims for contract breach or quantum merit or unjust enrichment fall by the wayside because the big fat Copyright Act stamps them out. And so the judge is like, I don't see how you get around the Copyright Act, and you are not an owner. I'll give you one more shot. I'll give you one more month to do it. He's going to lose. He's going to lose at the Second Circuit, and Simon & Schuster is going to be able to keep their $50 million. One little twist, Easter egg here. Right before Donald Trump filed its case, Simon & Schuster used to be owned by Paramount, which owns CBS, and they sold to a hedge fund. If Simon & Schuster was still owned by Paramount, they would have cut a deal in this case, just like they cut a deal about 60 Minutes and paid tens of millions of dollars in order to bless that transaction. But just completely just dumb luck, they sold it. And KKR doesn't, the owner of the Simon & Schuster is no love lost between the owners of KKR and Trump. And so they're not settling.
That's bonkers. That's actually wild. I didn't know that fact. And it really adds, and it almost shows you you could kind of map it out in your head, like the what if, but what if they did fold? What if they didn't fold? Right. And we've seen though now many examples. It's not really hypothetical, I think. And are you seeing this pattern that I'm seeing as a layman here, Popok, and the lessons that others could learn about actually standing up to Donald Trump before you decide to go and fold and give him a bunch of money? I think we've seen it quite consistently.
And not just domestically in lawsuits, internationally. I was away for a couple of weeks, although hopefully people didn't realize that as much video content as I made while I was away. Our co-producer said, he looked at some of our numbers. He's like, were you on holiday? Look at these numbers. I was like, yeah, I was. But I was reading a lot of international newspapers and media. And, the way they're reporting, like the tariffs, like every country is folding to Donald Trump. I don't know why I'm doing this voice. Every country is folding and paying billions of dollars and there's no resistance. I'm not sure that's actually true. They keep bragging about the tariffs. Howard Lutnick is bragging about the tariffs, the Commerce Secretary, as recently as Sunday, while his own company, his former company, is betting against the legality of those tariffs by buying people's. Wow. Yes, I just did a hot take on it. The Cantor Fitzgerald.
Hold up. Yes. Rewind. Popok, I want you to just say that again and explain it for the people, because this is truly nuts.
Cantor Fitzgerald, which Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, who is the chief ambassador for tariffs, his own company that he sold to his 28-year-old former DJ son, is running a business now where they're buying people's potential refunds for tariffs once the tariffs are declared to be unconstitutional. So you come to them, I had to pay $10 million in tariffs. They'll say, we'll give you $2 million for that. Give us that piece of paper and that claim, and then we'll benefit when the tariffs are struck down. So people affiliated with the inner circle of Donald Trump are already betting that his tariffs will be struck down by the courts and benefiting from it.
Watch what they do not what they say, and I think it tells a tremendous story. Pope, before we let you go, I want you to let the folks know what you are doing with this Legal AF channel, because it's my favorite. It's where I go for all my legal updates, and I just love seeing this Legal AF brand that we all started now years ago just blossom into this own kind of massive network of its own. And you guys have so many of like the best legal minds out there every single day doing all these takes. And before you get into what's going on the YouTube channel, everybody, make sure you add the Legal AF podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Of course, make sure you add the MeidasTouch podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you like this show or that you're watching and listening to right now, you will love the legal show, Legal AF. So check that out. But Popok, what's going on the Legal AF YouTube channel right now?
So we're doing 12 new videos a day, at least, at the intersection. We used to say law and politics, but it's really the defense of our democracy. And I've got, along with me, I've got about a dozen contributors. We've and look at this lineup. It's like, the CBS used to be the Tiffany network. Of course, they trashed that by making the settlement with Donald Trump and throwing 60 Minutes into the wood chipper. I consider us to be the Tiffany channel when it comes to law and politics. We've got Sidney Blumenthal and Sean Wilentz, who run a show on our channel called Court of History. The guests that they bring on is just phenomenal. Julie K. Brown is going to be a guest for them. They just had Michael Wolff on there. Sidney Blumenthal, of course, was in the Clinton administration and an amazing author and journalist. Sean Wilentz is a presidential historian, and they're just our resident historians. We've got Court Accountability Action, led by Alex Aronson and Lisa Graves. They bring on a lot of politicians, a lot of public interest groups like the ACLU and other groups for interviews as well. We just added two new, I don't know if you call it, I hate using labels, Gen Z. All right, two new people, Rachel Cohen, who stood up against big law and then joined one of the major firms that's up against the Trump administration. She and Tiara Mack, who's a state senator from Rhode Island, do a show called Pragmatic Optimist. We got Asha and Renato, who joined us to bring their show It's Complicated. They're both national security experts, one at Yale, a Yale instructor, the other one a former FBI agent and federal prosecutor, and they do that great show. We got Shan Wu, former general counsel for the Attorney General, Dina Dahl doing regular work for us, Dave Arenberg, Florida lawman. I mean, and the list. Oh, we just added Civil Action. Shant and Brian, who are doing like 4 videos a day.
Pope.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy. We're so excited. We crossed the 200 million view barrier about a week ago. We're up to 720,000 subscribers in much less than a year. It's really been my distinct professional privilege and honor to curate that show and do a lot of the videos there, and still doing, of course, all my work for MeidasTouch.
Well, let's get that to 1 million subscribers, everybody. YouTube.com/legalafmtn. Go and check that out now. Make sure you subscribe to the Legal AF podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure you check out the MeidasTouch podcast as well on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Popok, thank you for filling in with this legal segment. Very informative. A lot of bombshells. Love the vaudevillian accents that you bring into it. Loving it all. Thanks so much. And speaking of those tariffs that you were talking about, Popok, when we get back, I do want to talk about some of the backtracking that we are seeing on the tariffs from the administration now. That so-called August 1st date, well, doesn't seem like it's all of a sudden all that important. We're going to talk about that and more. Don't you go anywhere. Michael Popok, thank you so much for joining us. We will be right back.
Welcome back. That was Michael Popok, me, Legal AF. You're here already. Hit the free subscribe button. MeidasTouch and the MeidasTouch Network. Those are our brothers. We've been working together closely for the last 5 years, and we curate everything on Legal AF together. Join us, help us, circle the wagons around us. We need your help right now. Independent media is under attack. Mainstream media is under attack. Heads are already being lopped off. The way to support us, and we desperately need it, is hit the subscribe button. It's all for free. There's no paywall. There's no outside investors. If you like that kind of appearance and that kind of content, you're going to love the dozen or so videos we do every day, all brand new, over here on Legal AF. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.